Welcome to the second episode of Popular Opinion versus the Truth. Today, we will be talking about the COVID-19 pandemic, the precautions to take, and how the virus is spreading so quickly.
Thank you once again for having me once more, the Eagle. As we all know, there has been a spike in cases of the novel coronavirus. Why is that? Well, because hardly anyone is taking the precautions given to us by the CDC, or the Center for Disease Control, such as wearing a face mask to cover both your mouth and your nose, social distancing by at least 6 feet, wearing gloves, washing your hands as often as possible, and most importantly, staying at home as much as possible. I think it's a shame that people aren't actually following these guidelines and these rules. As myself, I can attest to firsthand witnessing this as I work at a store in our local mall, and there are multiple times where customers walk in and they may be wearing a mask, but their mask does not cover their nose, and you politely ask them to cover up their noses, and they tend to often refuse and to make such a huge deal out of it when it's not just for their safety, but it's for my safety as well, for the safety of the employees and for the customers. That is our policy, to wear a mask. Now, also keeping social distancing 6 feet apart, as we see in the, in many of the protests that are still going on all over the country, particularly in Portland. There's no social distancing at all. There's no 6 feet distance. There's none of that, and there's barely any washing of the hands because you're at a protest, and not everyone has hand sanitizer on their thing. So I think that is contributing to why so many people are getting infected with this virus. Maybe not dying, but it's still a hassle that you're putting yourself and others around you at risk of getting this deadly virus.
Exactly, Joe. People are incredibly undisciplined and stupid. They either think the virus is no big deal due to its 1% mortality rate, they think that masks are mind control and infringement upon their freedoms and that they cause health problems, or some combination of both. Obviously, neither of those are the case. Masks are meant to protect us, and they do so if worn properly by covering your nose and mouth. I've seen many people wearing the masks only covering their mouth and not their nose, or just wearing the masks on their chin, which is just beyond stupid. I don't get it personally. After all, surgeons, dentists, and other healthcare professionals wear masks when dealing with patients, and the former do not develop any health issues from wearing masks. Also, if masks were so harmful from the start, why must they be worn by healthcare professionals, and why are these COVIDiots speaking up about them now? These people are part of the issue. They're one of the many reasons that this virus is spreading around so damn fast and killing several people. For instance, people have been blaming Trump and his rallies for the spike of cases, and they're not wrong. Mask wearing and social distancing were not enforced, and neither Trump nor his team wear masks, which shows very poor leadership skills. He needs to enforce these rules much more efficiently and strictly, and he needs to wear a mask himself.
You're right, and I'm glad you mentioned the Trump rallies, but as you see, the media is making a huge big deal for Trump having rallies, and it's like, oh, it can contribute to the spike of COVID cases, but no one is talking about the Black Lives Matter protests that are going on, and just like especially in particular the ones that we talked about last week, and even the ones that I mentioned just a few moments ago, the ones going on in Portland. The protesters only blame Trump, the Trump rallies, for the spike in corona cases, when these protests are going on all the time, every single day, all over the country, but no one wants to address that. They ignore and even deny the fact that they are responsible as well. I would argue that they are more responsible, because the fact that they are having these protests and these riots going on, these quote-unquote peaceful protests, they seem to, influence the fact that others can be like, hey, they're going out, not a lot of them are getting sick, I guess as they're all going out, I guess I can go out as well. And that is why I would say one of the reasons why Trump is, continuing to have his rallies, because Everyone has seen the mortality rate. It's about a 1%. And then they see all these people going out doing protests. And the Trump rallies would, of course, have a more organized group, a more organized way of not necessarily controlling, but for lack of a better word, controlling the people that are in that close area. Now, the radical left tells everyone else to follow the precautions, mainly to stay home, yet they all go out in large groups, some not even wearing masks. I've seen many, many videos of people not wearing masks at these protests, and they protest and they loot. They're nothing but a bunch of hypocrites, honestly. It's very sad to see.
While they are right in the sense that we have to take these precautions, they are taking advantage of the fact that we cannot leave our homes unless it's absolutely necessary, just so they can riot and loot with very little people in the way. So yeah, they are hypocrites. They're just mice playing out on the streets while us cats are away. But let's go back to the original topic of Corona. Even though it only has about a 1% mortality rate, it's still no excuse to get together in large groups and increase the number of cases. Going out and not taking the precautions is just like playing Russian roulette. The more you do it, the more likely you'll get COVID and spread it to others, which explains why the cases are increasing and why so many people have died. There's also the fact that there have been old people who survived it and young and healthy people who don't. So if you end up getting it, regardless of your age, you may or may not die, which is definitely not a risk worth taking. Even if you do survive the virus, there's a good possibility of developing permanent damage to your lungs, heart, and other organs.
I wholeheartedly agree, and it's unfortunate to see that there is a possibility for permanent damages to the lungs, heart, and the other organs. I agree with that, and it can be argued that there are also some psychological issues that can arise based on how frightening and painful the experience is to be overall. For example, some people cannot tolerate or handle pain the same way as others. Some people have a fear of being in hospitals. Some people have a general fear of dying from this virus. And when you know add all of those to just how deadly the virus is, yes, it is a 1% mortality rate, but that doesn't take into account how your state of mind would be. So like if can't handle the pain, you're more likely to give up, to give in to and to succumb to the pain. And unfortunately, in many cases, you can pass away. You can lose your life from that. And I also am, when it comes to frightening, when you fear something, it's more likely to happen just from a psychological point of view. I'm not really a psychologist, but I've done a little bit of research and I've learned that the more you fear something, the more likely it is to come to pass. And unfortunately, that tremendous fear of death can, if your flight, if your bodily responses aren't as strong as others, you can succumb to the virus, which is unfortunate.
I'm sure it is very scary. What's also scary is knowing that one of your loved ones got infected. Imagine having to live in suspense and concern every day, knowing that there's a chance that they might die. As a matter of fact, I know some people who have died from it, and others who either currently have it or have survived it.
Oh dang, that's tough to hear. How are they?
My best friend's grandmother and one of my former classmates' father unfortunately died from the virus. The grandmother got it from her husband who was out and about, not taking any of the precautions, but somehow he survived, but she did not. My classmate's father, on the other hand, was a doctor who worked with COVID patients at a hospital. And at that same hospital, I heard that someone, not entirely sure who, didn't take any of the proper precautions. He exposed himself to the virus and spread it to an unknown number of people out there in the hospital. Maybe the father got it as a result of the person's carelessness. I'm not entirely sure though. I don't know too much about the story. This is pretty much all I know.
Wow, I'm so sorry to hear about that, Eagle, and I hope they make a full recovery. It's been proven by the CDC that if everyone took all the precautions, the number of cases would be greatly minimized. It's been stated that if everyone wore their mask, within a few weeks, we could get this virus under control. And if everyone, of course, just stayed home like they're supposed to, instead of, just going out and all that stuff. And even if you do choose to go out, if you just be safe, because I know there's bars out there and no one's really wearing a mask, especially here in South Florida where I am. Yeah, there's a good number of people who are not wearing their masks, even at the mall. They have their mask like under their chin, but they're not really wearing it, and it's like, okay, what's the point of having this mask if you're not gonna, properly wear it? Of course, you can take it off, to eat, if you with your friends and you're just eating in a small circle, that's fine. But after you eat, put it back on, all that good stuff. But it's sad to see that no one wants to follow these guidelines. After all, and here's an interesting thing. Many European countries, such as Spain and Germany, they have enforced mask wearing, social distancing, and whatnot. They're very strict about that. And I know I don't know if this is actually true, but I saw this meme the other day, where it said Russia released lions so that everyone can stay inside, and I'm like, hey, that's a very smart method. Of course, that wouldn't fly over here, but hey, if it works, it works. But back to what I was saying, Spain and Germany, they have enforced all these laws strictly, and they've reduced their numbers of cases tremendously. Even if you look at the example of Taiwan, which is right next to China, from the beginning, they stopped flights from Wuhan. They've stopped most international flights. They enforce social distancing. They've enforced wearing masks and all that stuff. And to this day, and they never even shut down the country, and they're doing perfectly fine. So it can be overtaken. This virus can be, the curve can be flattened. It can be greatly minimized. It can, bring everything down, as they would say. And it's sad that they don't see that. And the first punishment for not wearing a mask in countries like Spain and Germany is the equivalent to a $1,000 fine. Can you believe that? A $1,000 fine for not wearing a mask. Now, if you were to enforce that here, obviously, I would like to hope most people would wear their mask. And the second time you're caught without a mask, you're arrested. If the United States of America used this system or one very similarly, I would like to hope and believe that we would also have less cases. Unfortunately, as you stated before, there are many immature and damn near crazy people who think that all of these precautions are a form of enslavement and mind control. These guidelines are none of those. They are protection against this virus. This isn't about freedom. This isn't about politics. This isn't about left, right, Republican, Democrat. It's none of that. It's about protecting the protection of everyone. If a soldier was to go out on the battlegrounds and not wear his armor, his bulletproof vest, or bring his guns, he would die and not be able to defend himself, and he would be an obstacle for his fellow soldiers who would have to stop and cover him. The same thing is with this virus. We need to follow all of the rules to protect ourselves and, more importantly, others. You may not care about your safety. That's fine. That's fine if you don't care about your safety. I can't force you, but I damn sure am not going to get this virus just because you don't want to wear your mask. Another example is I saw this TikTok the other day of this guy saying that he has a short temper. He was mentioning that he has a short temper, and he was saying that I'm not really willing to die for anyone, let alone get killed by this virus. And I wholeheartedly agree. And I even saw another example before I wrap up here. A veteran who used to serve in I think it was the Air Force, I believe. He was saying that I risked my life in battle and doing that, and I'm not gonna come home just to die from a cold. Obviously, he downplayed it. Obviously, this virus is not just a cold, but it still applies. He went out, he risked, dying, he get explosions all around, gunfire, just to come back to die from a virus? Because someone doesn't want to wear their mask or, stay 6 feet away or wash their hands? I don't see the logic in that. So, all in all, I think that we need to find a way to spread the word, to spread awareness that we do need to wear masks, we do need to social distance, stay home. I will repeat it louder into this microphone. Stay home. You don't need to go out if it's unnecessary. You don't have to. You don't have to go to the beach. We've been doing this for a few months. If your state is reopened, fine, that's great, but also keep wearing your mask. But if your state is closing up again, if your state is, holding back on reopening, then, and if you see there's a spike in cases in your state, in your city, even in your neighborhood, your county, whatever it may be, just all in all, wear a mask, social distance. It's not that hard. It's not that hard. We need to follow all the rules to protect ourselves and others.
Precisely. I've heard people on the far right of the political spectrum argue with the logic of, if your mask works, then I don't need one. Well, here's another analogy to prove just how stupid and wrong they are. If you're sober, why would you care if I'm driving drunk? Your seatbelt and airbags work, right? Driving drunk in this analogy is just like not wearing a mask. You're endangering your life and the lives of those around you. Wearing a seatbelt and driving sober, which are the equivalents to wearing a mask and taking all the other precautions, protect both you and others around you and greatly lower the spread of COVID-19. While the masks do protect us, there's about a 70% chance that a healthy mask wearer will get COVID if a carrier not wearing a mask coughs near them. It's also proven that there's a 1.5% chance of a healthy mask wearer getting it if both they and the carrier both wear masks. I've told this to many far-right conservatives who claim to be all about facts, yet they deny them. They're just like liberals, like when you present them with facts that just proves them wrong, they just simply deny it. It's very illogical, it's very stupid. They also use the pro-abortion logic of my body, my choice to justify their anti-mask views. What do getting an abortion and not wearing a mask have in common? A person is either ending or endangering the lives of at least someone else out of their own free will. If these conservatives were truly pro-life, they'd understand the danger this virus poses and take all of the necessary precautions to save and protect as many lives as possible. They are nothing but immature and selfish children in adult bodies who have no respect for authority and the well-being of others. So for everyone's sake, stay home as much as possible. And if you have to leave your house, whether it's for groceries, or to pick up medicine, or for any other reason, wear your fucking mask and gloves, stay 6 feet apart from each other, wash your hands often for about 20 seconds, and clean frequently touched objects. And don't forget
And one last thing before we wrap up, I would like to remind everyone that if you are watching this on YouTube, to please hit the like button, subscribe, and share. Post your comments down below. Let's keep the conversation going. Be sure to hit the notification bell and make sure you click all, otherwise you won't get notified. And if you would like to follow us on other platforms, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Popular Opinion versus the Truth. The handles are in the description of the YouTube video. And if you're listening to us on Spotify, thank you for listening. On Spotify, Apple, please, follow us on there. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Leave a little comment if you like it. If you didn't like it, let us know your thoughts, concerns, your questions, topics for other videos, other episodes. And you can also find us on those. Just type in Popular Opinion versus the Truth podcast on pretty much everything. YouTube, like I said before, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Spotify, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, pretty much everywhere you find podcasts. Just type in Popular Opinion versus the Truth, and that is probably most likely where you'll find us. And we even have a Patreon coming out soon if you would like to support the channel financially. If you want to, you don't have to, but if you would like to, we will have some nice perks up there for you soon. That would be at patreon.com/Popular Opinion versus the Truth. Have a good one, guys, and don't forget to open your eyes and see through the lies. We'll see you next time.